Hi, I'm Paul from SmoothStar Skateboards, and today I have some handy hints and tips on how to maintain your SmoothStar thruster so it can remain as good as this, and certainly not like this. When you receive your SmoothStar thruster complete with the deck, it's going to be in fantastic condition. The springs are going to be nice and tight, and it's going to be free from dust and grime. Now, the most important thing and number one complaint is having dust and dirt get into the springs, which will just stop the thruster from turning as smooth as it is now. So how do we do this? Obviously keep it away from dirt areas, bring the board inside when you finish with it, so it just remains as good as new. Salt water is a bad idea with the thruster, as some parts are metal and they can rust quite badly. So we understand it's going to be pretty difficult to keep the thruster, your skateboard, away from salty, sandy conditions. Let's face it, that's where we're going to be most of the time. So what I'm going to show you is just how we can maintain the thruster and get it back to in good working order. All right, so let's get into it. Let's talk about the thruster, all the parts to it, so you can actually attempt yourself a bit of a repair. So first of all, we have the Allen key, which is very important. So the first thing we can do is just loose the whole mechanism, and you'll notice straight away that the handle will come loose. This just frees up the turning mechanism. So let's turn it over now and look at the all-important bolt. This is the one that has a sticker that says "Don't turn." Obviously, to maintain the thruster, we need to loosen this bolt and take it off. Just be careful with the spring-loaded washers you'll find with it. There's 2 washers and also 1 cylinder bearing. Okay, now once the bolt's removed, you'll find that the whole assembly is very loose. Let's just take the bolt out. Here we go. Then you'll find that the whole assembly can now be removed, quite simply. So what we need to do is get to the cylinder bearings now. These are the ones that are going to be quite dirty, quite sandy. Let's take care of the spring. So now that all your parts are out of the thruster, it's quite easy to clean the thruster down. And usually what I do is I dip the whole thing in turps, and with a rag or even a toothbrush is fantastic to give the whole area inside a really good clean out. Dry it off and then check all the bearings and washers to make sure they're not full of dirt and grime. If they are, you're going to have to wash these out with turps as well. So how do we know that the parts are actually wearing out? Usually with the spring, you'll find that it compresses to an extent where the board just turns too easy. And even though you're tightening it up with the mechanism, it's just not performing properly. That's a good indication that it's time to replace the spring. The main problem, as you can see from this worn thruster that someone has left out constantly in the rain, is that she just seizes up completely. The casing itself is still perfect. It's just all the spare parts that you require to get this back to new. So just imagine this is your thruster that is in pretty bad condition. As you can see, there's a lot of rust on the cylinder bearings. Let's just see how hard it is to get this undone. Here we go. Let's just see the problems that can be associated with leaving your board outside in bad conditions. As you can see, all rust around the cylinder bearings. They'll have to be replaced. So as we go underneath, we can see the corrosion build-up just in the salt water and leaving the board out in the air. Let's have a look at the difference here between the 2 cylinder bearings. As you can see, rust is a big inhibitor and not good for free moving. Anything that is rusted as much as this needs to be replaced. So that's the first thing we need to do. Now the casing will remain in good condition most of the time because it's made of aluminium. Okay, so there's no rust happening here at all. The only time you have to replace this, obviously, if you see a crack in the casing. The bolts generally will be in good condition. Sometimes they could be stripped, so just keep a check on those. Now when you replace the nut, it does have a nylon thread, but you also need Loctite, which is a liquid that will seal the bolt from coming undone. Now these nuts are readily available at most hardware stores, or you can buy them on many of our websites. Now let's see why this thruster is just not turning correctly in the condition that it's in. So if we replace the washers and the bearings, we can see that there's a lot of resistance there, a lot of friction between the bearings and the cylinder. Let's try it with a brand new washers and cylinders and see the difference. And there we go. So we have really smooth action now, just as good as new. Now the new washers and cylinders, they do come already lubricated. If you need to put a bit more lubrication on them, just get a little bit of sewing machine oil, place it on the top and the bottom of the rings on both, and that will self-lubricate the cylinders. Okay, so let's put the old thruster back together and let's see what kind of result we get. So let's attach the bolt through the center. Bottom washer, cylinder washer, top washer. Place it straight through, turn her over, and then just do the same again with the small cylinders. Same order. 1, 2, and the top cylinder. Don't forget your bolt. Here we go. So if we can just tighten this up a little bit now. And let's see if we have some free turning thrusters here. And there we go. Nice easy turning thruster. Now I've just noticed that's still a little bit loose, so let's just tighten it up a little bit more. And how tight should that be? Usually I find if I can just feel the top of the bolt a little bit proud with my finger, that's pretty much perfect. And there we go. A little bit of resistance, but not too much. The next step is to put the spring back in place and the tension arm. So here we go. Tension arm, spring, and feed the bolt through. You'll find you have just enough room to put the washer on the end. Just place the washer in front of the bolt, grab your Allen key, keep turning until you can feel the bolt grab the washer. Don't turn it too much, as you're going to need to place the tension arm over the thruster body. There's a little lug, as you can see, and you should be able to just pressure over, and there she goes, click into place. If the tension's a bit too much, just get a screwdriver, a flathead screwdriver at the back, and just lever, and you'll hear it click into place. Let's see how it's working now. Obviously that's way too loose, so let's give it a bit of a tighten now. And here we go, just a couple of turns. And there we have it. Now the last thing we need to do is replace the split pin into the end of the bolt. There'll be a small hole there, and the reason for that is to hold the washer on. Now here's one that's already done. Let's have a close look at the washer. There's the washer, and you can see the little pin. Alright, so let's put this old reconditioned thruster on the board and see how she goes.